Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, more often than not in this life, we do what we got to do for family. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because, quite frankly, you're listening. And if you are listening, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on the social media platforms. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, Letterboxd, the TikTok, and probably a few other places too. Where else would we be? We're at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to sit down and watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness and come and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a good one that is, hitting theaters, limited run. This coming Friday, another piece of dynamic and fantastic example of CanCon cinema that is out there and being put out there into the world. It's called Orah, and it's the story of a Nigerian immigrant taxi driver in Toronto who agrees to launder dirty money for her boss in exchange for bringing her son over from Nigeria. But when the plan goes horribly wrong, Orah takes matters into her own hands to settle the score. This is common people put into extraordinary situations. This is a film that highlights a lot of the sad realities about the immigrant experience for some people, but also manages to turn it into a pretty solid crime thriller as well. And I mean, it is a fantastic watch. Like I said, it is coming to theaters for a limited run pretty much now, tomorrow, but. We had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with the man behind it all, the writer-director of the film, Lonzo Nzewke. If I pronounced that wrong, I do apologize. We asked about the origins of the story and putting this all together, and so very much more. But like I said, go check out Orah. It opens this Friday in limited theatrical release. I'm pretty sure it's coming to VOD soon as well. But first, enjoy our talk with Lonzo, because between you and me, it's a darn good one. All right, well, Lonzo, man. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for the time today. I mean, congrats on the movie, man. It's a hell of a ride, man. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Now, I guess my first question is like, walk me through the origin of the story. Like, what made you want to tell this story?
After I finished my first film in 2010, Anchor Baby, I decided to, kind of venture in something because it was a drama. I wanted to write a crime thriller. So, and with that crime thriller, I wanted something more in the maybe money laundry, with money laundry elements. So I started off as a money laundry element, and then in the process, one of the characters, which happened to be Orah, kind of like morphed from a secondary character to a primary character and took over the story per se. So it now became a revenge crime story. And then in that process, while I was developing, it was just your typical genre crime revenge flick until sometime in around 2016, my brother was murdered in Nigeria. So by police officers, and so that led me to going back to Nigeria to figure out what happened to my brother. And after being frustrated for a long time without getting to the bottom of it, and my mother asked me to kind of like leave the case because it was turning into a nightmare for her and for the whole family. So we ended up the case without having a closure. So I decided, since I'm a writer, to kind of channel that whole energy into my writing, and then
Totally.
some of the elements now kind of became what now we see today as Orah.
Now, I mean, talk to me a little bit just about, I guess, finding your aura, finding Oyen, because I mean she was fantastic and you really had really a great cast. I can imagine casting on this was probably 90% of the job for you.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and that was the most important thing was us to finding the real aura. We had auditions here in Toronto, opened it up for everybody pretty much, and anybody you could think of in the city, that fit that profile came in for the audition, and Oyin stood out. She was our own aura by, after everything was said and done. It was a battle though, like finding the people, because at a point we had to narrow it down to three people.
Right.
But Owen took the reins and became the aura that we needed, and we've never looked back since then.
I appreciated on this film that, and I mean, again, this is something that can happen with filmmakers working in the independent space, basically with no money.
Mm.
That they run into sort of, when they have to have an action sequence, they can sort of shoehorn in an effect that doesn't necessarily look all that good. The action
Right.
here looks kind of really good. Like, can you talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit just about how you wanted this to try to play as naturally as possible? Because I mean, again, like even in the action moments, nothing felt forced, nothing felt sort of fakey. It all felt very organic and gritty and real.
Thank you for that observation. As you can see, like I don't know if I mentioned it. This is a story I started writing around 2011, so
Mm.
it's like it's been with me for like over a decade, like working on this story. So I'm also an editor, so I kind of like and I write, so I kind of know what looks cheesy and what's not
Right,
cheesy, and I know
right.
what my budget is and what not to write in. We had to cut out for a lot of scenes that were gonna cost us money for the sake of it not being cheesy, if that's the word we want to use here. So I did a lot of storyboarding, really taking my time and not forcing it. And that's one thing. I try not to pull punches in my story, the way I write, and also the way I direct. So a lot of preparations went into it, pre-production, having the stunt people out there, making sure that the elements that we want, how we want it to come out is how it's going to come out. And at the end of the day, it came down to the actors and the crew, the cast and crew. I had a great production designer in Toronto and in Nigeria, because we shot in both countries, right? So the production designer here, Mark Kowalski, a great production designer. And then we had Bisola in Nigeria, a young lady who we nicknamed her the magician, because she did a lot of magic for us to make sure that everything came together and looked amazing.
For sure. For sure. Now, I mean, I'm curious because obviously this story is to some varying degree something that's going on in the real world multiple times over every single day of the week. But at the
Right.
same time, in watching the movie, it was still very entertaining. It never felt like it was a piece of social commentary. It felt very much driven by narrative. Like, how important was it for you to sort of thread that needle and make it more about the characters and the narrative than rather than trying to quote unquote say something with it?
And that's the thing. Like when I go watch a movie and then it becomes too preachy, I kind of tune off,
Yeah.
because I like to discover things. Like the way I look at cinema is like cinema is supposed to ask a question. It's supposed to, by the time you finish watching it, it's supposed to put you in a position where you are. It stays. It's like it vibrates through you, like you're asking, "What did I just watch? What did I just witness?" And that's what I want the audience to feel. I don't want to. I want to present the situation and for you to now make your own conclusions without, was she right doing this? Was she, nobody is a saint in the story. You understand? And I prefer it that way, as opposed to, trying to shoehorn it and make you feel like, okay, this is what's happening in Nigeria, this is what's happening in Canada, and this is how it has to be. No, I present the situations with these characters that are flawed, by the way, and it's for you now to see the humanity in what they do and the journey they go through. And then after that, you can have a discussion about, what you just witnessed. And that's how I prefer my own cinema as well.
What is it about those kind of characters who are, like you say, I mean, in many respects, they're normal everyday people, but they are pushed to those brinks. They are pushed past those lines that we think are kind of socially acceptable to go to these places where, like you say, at the end of the day, no one's a saint. No one's, everyone has their foibles, everyone has their flaws, but I mean, it's all shades of, like, what is it about those shades of gray that make characters so
It
compelling?
makes it human. It's human. Like we are all human beings, right?
Yeah.
So a real human being, we all have our flaws, right? And then every single one of us, when we present our own flaws, you see that it doesn't matter if you're the Pope, he has a flaw. It doesn't matter if you're the president, he has his own flaws. Even if it's not obvious to the public, but when he goes home and looks in the mirror, he knows those flaws. And that's what attracts people like me to cinema to say, okay, I'm trying to see someone that looks like me, even if nobody knows this, but I can live vicariously through these people because they're talking to me. And that's the more reason why you don't preach when you make this type of stories, because you just want to present and say, hey, look at someone that looks like you, and maybe you can work on yourself based on what you just witnessed without me saying this is what you got to do to better yourself or to be worse than than you were. So it's the humanity in the stories. I think that's what attracts us. Because me, I always go with what attracts me. I put myself, because I write and direct and produce, so I always put myself first in that situation. If I'm not feeling it, if I write it and it doesn't feel real to me, then I don't subscribe to it. I wouldn't want to sell it to you.
Yeah.
But if I can connect to it, there's a high chance that someone else that feels the same way as I do will connect to it as well.
How do you manage to keep, I guess, the creative energy and the vision going, especially when you're shooting in two very different locations? Because I mean, I can imagine, other than a few key people, you probably had a lot of turnover between the different crews that you had while you were shooting.
Actually, we didn't have a lot of turnover.
Oh, really?
Like yeah, we had a long prep time, but this movie, you've seen it, right? This
Yeah.
movie, we literally shot 9 days in Sudbury and 10 days in Nigeria. That's excluding the pre-production,
Right.
the stages, right? We understood how much we had, right? The story, we prepped it. I knew it. I had storyboards for all the action scenes that I wanted to do. Made sure, I'm writing, I'm editing myself. I knew like what I need and what I don't need. So I kind of like, even when we went to Nigeria, we were auditioning over on Zoom while we were shooting in Sudbury. We had a second unit team in Nigeria prepping, getting ready. As soon as we finished in Sudbury, I came home, spent a night at home with my family, and got on a plane, a 24-hour flight back to Nigeria. And in a few more days, we started shooting in Nigeria again. And if you have any idea about shooting in Nigeria, it's no cakewalk. Like shooting in Canada, which we thought was tough. Nigeria is a tougher place to be in terms of shooting, and when you watch it, you see how beautiful Nigeria looks like from what we managed to do with that. So it's preparation. I had the right crew. My cinematographer, Ricardo Diaz, was amazing, right?
Yeah.
You know, and he was the only person, and my producer and line producer, we all went to Nigeria. All the crew in Nigeria, different crew, including the production designer, the whole thing. So the only person I took care was my DOP that was like working behind the camera.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, you guys did a fantastic job because, I mean, obviously, in both places, there's a through line of the tension and the drama and everything that's going on. And I mean, in watching the film, it kind of reminded me of some of those classic sort of independent 70s crime thrillers that we got coming out of New York back in the day. And I mean, I'm curious just to start putting a bow on this. Like, talk to me a little bit about the movies that kind of had the light bulb go off in your head and made you want to be a filmmaker.
Oh, that's a good one. I would say I'm a big fan of Taxi Driver. Yeah, Taxi Driver, it's one of my favorite. The Bicycle Thief.
Oh, totally.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I consume cinema from all over the world. One of my favorite gangster movies is The Gangs of Park. It came to TIFF
Oh,
a
that's a,
few
oh,
years.
I love that movie. That movie's so
Yeah,
wild.
it had a part one and the part two is like 6 hours, you know. And then Tarantino, Inglorious Bastards from Tarantino, Pulp Fiction. I love the Goodfellas. Love Nigerian cinema as well. There's a great movie from Nigeria called The Rattlesnake, done in the 90s. It's one of my favorite movies. So I leave it right there. So I try to consume cinema from different parts of the world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love that you've done that, man. And I mean, I love that this is coming out for Canadian audiences to see because, man, in my mind, this is the best of Canadian cinema because it's bringing so many different worlds and so many different styles together. And I mean, I think that is really sort of quintessentially Canadian. And I mean, it really highlights what you've done with this film because I think it's a fantastic piece of work. And I mean, I think people are really going to enjoy it. But I mean, again, Lonzo, just thank you so much for the time and congrats on the work. Seriously, I can't wait for more people to see it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you giving us the platform to talk about the film.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Good luck. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.